Howdy, y'all. This is Proverbs 17 in the ALV for November 17th, 2023. Better is a dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of the sacrifices of strife. A wise servant shall rule over a son who causes shame, and shall have part in the inheritance among the brethren. The refining pot is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but Yahweh tries the hearts. An evildoer gives heed to wicked lips. Falsehood gives ear to a mischievous tongue. Who mocks the poor reproaches his maker. He who is glad at calamity shall not be unpunished. Children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children is their fathers. Excellent speech is not becoming to a fool, much less lying lips a prince. A bribe is a precious stone in the eyes of him who has it. Wherever it turns, it prospers. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who harps on a matter separates chief friends. A rebuke enters deeper into one who has understanding than 100 stripes into a fool. A rebellious man seeks only evil, therefore a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. Let a bear robbed of her whelps meet a man rather than a fool in his folly. Who rewards evil for good? Evil shall not depart from his house. The beginning of strife is a letting out of waters. Therefore, leave off contention before there's quarreling. Who justifies the wicked, and who condemns the righteous? An abomination to Yahweh are both of them alike. Why is there a price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom, seeing he has no sense? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man who lacks sense strikes hands and becomes surety in the presence of his neighbor. He loves transgression who loves strife. He who raises high his gate seeks destruction. He who has a wayward heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue falls into mischief. He who begets a fool has sorrow for it, and the father of a fool has no joy. A cheerful heart causes good healing, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. A wicked man receives a bribe out of the bosom to pervert the ways of justice. Wisdom is before the face of him who has understanding, but the eyes of a fool are in the ends of the earth. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. Also, to not punish the righteous is not good, nor to smite the noble for their uprightness. He who spares his words has knowledge, and he who is of a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool, when he holds his peace, is counted wise. When he shuts his lips, he's prudent. One of my favorite verses, man, in all of Proverbs. Just you don't always have to talk. You don't always have to respond, and you certainly don't always have to be right. Because if you try to give that right answer and you're wrong, much more shame than if you had just kept quiet. And several times in this chapter, it's be quiet. When and why, right? A dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of the sacrifices of strife. That's an interesting way of putting that. It's not like that in the other translations, right? The sacrifices of strife. Like, okay, you got a nice house and nice cars and stuff in it, but you get constantly nagged, or there's constant fighting, or just disunity in the house. Kids don't listen, wife don't listen. You know what I mean? Like, that's better to have a simple life and a quiet one than one that you're constantly upset about. Yahweh tests the hearts of man. In another chapter, it talks about praise, right? Praise being a test. So the Lord ultimately knows our heart, can break it down, you know, so to speak, just like the refiner's fire. And ultimately, I think that's kind of the process that we go through sanctification and ultimately judgment. But it's our hearts, you know. See, if you're mocking the poor, you're approaching his maker. Shh. This one. Who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who harps on a matter separates cheap friends. Don't bring stuff up over and over, and don't use that as ammo every time you need something to point at when you're unhappy with somebody or want to voice your displeasure. That's only going to drive them away. And then further down here, the beginning of strife is a letting out of waters. Picture a dam, with a hole in it. If you don't immediately plug that hole, the hole gets bigger, and then it gets bigger, and then eventually it just collapses it, and now you don't have a dam anymore. You just got a restriction, and even that'll be pushed out over time. So, shh, right? We don't need to. I think we feel the need to fight sometimes. We want to feel justified. We want to feel like we won or lost because we pursued it. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Therefore, leave off contention before there's quarreling. Fix your face, fix your attitude problem before you run your mouth and cause a problem. That's what this is saying here. Who justifies the wicked and who condemns the righteous? So wicked and righteous, an abomination to Yahweh, both of them are alike. Even if we're righteous and good, we are not enough. Why? Because there's, just like the Greek philosophers talked about, right? There's forms, there's values out there that are abstract. That's what they're pointing at. There is a standard, and we are not that standard, right? So there's, for instance, a 1 kilogram sphere. Oh, what material is it? And it is a known quantity of molecules of the specific metal, and that is our standard for a kilogram, right? It's this super. They called it the most precisely machined objects by humans. I believe that's how the scientists that worked on it described it. It is a perfectly round, perfectly measured 1 kilogram sphere of this particular metal. That is the standard. So when another shop somewhere or another, I don't know what to call it, agency attempts to do it, this was like a multi-billion-dollar operation to do this, right? So it's kind of like what's good enough in production, right? So if we're measuring dog food, we need a kilogram, but we don't need it with 10 zeros out. If we're shooting things to space or at, a Mach 10 scramjet or something like that, you want your tolerance. You're really, really on there, right? You need your high precision. Point being, there's standards out there, even in our physical world, that we interact with every day. We can get a scale, measure a kilogram, have an object around a house, and known weight kilogram, but it is still off. So even when we're pursuing God and being righteous, like, we're not going to hit the mark. We're just not going to hit the mark. And to think otherwise is prideful. The OG sin. I can do it myself. Careful, everybody, including Jim. Don't make deals. It's like the saying, right? Don't let your mouth write checks that your butt can't cash. Don't shake hands for the surety of a friend. Don't co-sign people's stuff, man. Because when they don't hold up their end of the bargain that you assumed because you're good buddies, like they were going to do what they said they were going to do, guess who has to answer for it? You. He who has a perverse tongue falls into mischief. It's bad enough you got perverse thoughts. Don't run your mouth and spread perversity. Wisdom is before the face of him who has understanding, but the eyes of the fool are in the ends of the earth. Running with wisdom is the spirit, right? We're close to it. We can talk with it, like it says in other verses. That it's like a guide and something that we can converse with. But the fool is looking for wisdom, or here, understanding everywhere, and is never going to find it, because understanding comes from wisdom. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. Your speech and your language and how you conduct yourself have something to do with that. So do what you can to guard your words. All right, this fool is going to hold his peace from dispensing any further opinions. So, with that, hopefully you got something out of this other than just hearing, shut your mouth. Like I said, fix your face, fix your attitude, because that's what the mouth follows, right? Words come out from your heart. So work on your spirit. And this is from an angry, rash guy who's been really trying to be able to, like it says, pass over a contention. This thing happened. I'm really angry about it. I'm not going to go run and tell my wife that I'm angry about it. I'm just going to say, okay, hey, this happened, but she did do this. So she tried. Do I need to go harp on her? Nah. Now remember, forgiveness, grace, these things, they're going to be dispensed to us like we were dispensing them to other people. So if it's a true offense, then you need to forgive them anyway. Whether they want it, whether they don't, ask for it, aware of it, it's on you. Dispense forgiveness in your prayers like Jesus taught us. Go with God and be blessed.